Hi guys, best regards from Ingolstadt. I have heard that you entered the Kamel GT Championship this year in the good old GTO car, so I wish you best of luck and a lot of success.
Best greetings to all drivers from the Audi GTO 90 Championship. Good success.
Both championships have been a tale of two seasons. While the first half saw a tight points battle, the second half has suddenly allowed both Neidhart and Gerber to run away with things. But they each have fierce rivals hot on their heels, and small mistakes could be costly in these final three events. We'll see if they can bring it home as we get ready to watch round 10 of the iRacing Kamel GT series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Adam Lindgren. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beer. Daytona will be a track of high speeds and high drama today. It offers up some unique racing on the road side of things. Let's head down to our track guide to understand why.
All right, we're in the GSRC Audi, so let's do a lap around Daytona. Through the trioval, you got to set up for turn one right away. The braking into here is going to be very touch and go. Don't be surprised to see drivers lose the rear because of how you're braking and turning at the same time. The transition from the bank into the flat doesn't help either. From off the corner, you got to set up your line through the S's and then immediately swing left for the widest line into the International Horseshoe. There's an access road that'll allow you to get to the power earlier if you use all the pavement available, so use it because it's considered fair game. Drift back across the track and then you've got to give a big lift to navigate the kink. Make sure and get right on top of that rumble strip. You'll get just a squirt of the gas before you're braking hard down into the Western Horseshoe. Resist the urge to turn in too early because the corner tightens at the center. Feather onto the power so that you don't understeer off, and then swing the car to the right and hit the binders. Turn 6 is critical because it dumps you back onto the oval. But the car likes to understeer when on the power, and if you have to lift to avoid plowing into the outside wall, that'll hurt just as much as getting onto the gas too late. It'll be all about timing and taking the car right to the edge. Now, this is the 2007 version of the track before the repave. You can see the car bouncing around quite a bit over the bumps, but it won't be that much of an issue for the Audi. The real test comes as you approach the braking for the bus stop. The car gets very unstable when you stomp the left pedal too hard. Lose the car on entry into here and expect to find the tire barrier. It's also important to be able to get back on the loud pedal as early as you can without getting a cut course penalty. Once again, you're on the gas for a long, long time through NASCAR 3 and 4, and you won't lift until you brake for turn 1 again. That means inevitably this will be a draft track. Take this time to figure out how much you can gain on the car ahead and plan your attack in case you need it late in the race. And if you're ahead, do your best to maximize the infield to break the draft. But hopefully you kept it together and have now finished a lap around Daytona.
You see from inside one of the Audis, the Nissans are going to have a pretty different experience. And Adam, you often talk about that, the difference between these cars at most tracks.
Yeah, I definitely do, and we'll definitely touch on that today. But with IMSA deciding this week to restart their real-life season at Daytona, it's only fitting that ye old American official iRacing series, driven by mostly non-Americans, would visit the track this round and add our most quote-unquote historic scan as well. This scan of the track, before the famous repave that was immediately ruined by an exploding jet dryer, is extremely bumpy throughout, and we all know what bumps do. Induce wheel spin for the Nissans and upset the braking points for the Audis. Both cars fare very well at this track, with the Nissans obviously having an edge, but the Audis get going quite fast through NASCAR 3 and 4 down the tri-oval with their drafting. So expect some good battles there and some Nissans that struggle to pass them on that straight. Multi-class here is easier than most places due to how fantastically wide the track is, making waiting to overtake a much shorter affair than at most of our other tracks, with one exception: the bus stop chicane. The Nissans must decide before the braking zone if they are overtaking into the chicane or waiting till long after, as the Audis are on the edge of everything going through that torturous series of corners. And with 60 minutes in this race, what a great venue to visit as we go into the last 3 races of the season, Joe.
Yeah, we'll talk about that race distance soon because that will come into play as the race goes on. Let's look at the championship before we do that, starting with the prototype points. And Fabian Gerber still at 25 ahead of Nick Mukanos. Albrecht closes in a little bit. Again, though, he missed a number of races. I think with the drop rounds now coming into play, he could get back into things, but it's going to be very difficult. He really needs to claw some more back today on Fabian Gerber if he hopes to have a chance in the last 2. And then you see Laust Olsen and Tobias Gerber actually tied for 4th. So all around, it is still all to play for, but it is going to be a decisive day today. Let's look at the GTOs and see if we got the same situation.
Yeah, it is relatively the same here. It actually almost looks identical, actually, with Dennis Neidhart 23 points over Phil Lake. That gap has grown a little bit since the beginning of this season. That being said, Dennis Neidhart has not had a DNF this season. He did not start at our second round, but he's been very consistent, and Phil Lake's going to need him to get at least 1, maybe 2 DNFs in order to try and close that gap because it's so wide. Juca Lascala is going to have to hope for a DNF from both of the guys ahead of them for the next 3 races in order to close that gap. And then Reed Miller, he's out of the picture for the top spot, but he might be able to catch Juca Lascala depending on his attendance and consistency for that last spot on the podium. And then Rob Olenek is a little bit too far out to challenge for any of the podium spots, but good to see him on the board again.
Absolutely. Been a bit of a so-so season for him. Now, today's race itself, we talked about it, 60 minutes. This is the endurance format, so you can expect one pit stop for fuel during this race. Not sure if tires will be as much of an issue at a track like this. It is open setup, so hopefully the drivers have made it so the tires can last for that. They don't have a fast repair. If you get damage out here, you've got to come in for that pit stop and try and get that repaired and use some of the extra time that'll take. They have some incident penalties. If they get 17, they will get a stop and go. And if they get 25, they will actually be disqualified from the race. Now, of course, the main place that you're going to see that happen is through that bus stop. Hopefully, you're not getting 25 offs through that bus stop today, because that will certainly not be a good day. As we watch Enrique Bella practice the pit entry, that's something I actually made a note for myself on, Adam. I feel like that's a good thing for the drivers to be practicing today.
Oh, definitely. For both of these classes. With the Nissans, when you get that hard on the brakes, the rear end wants to swap around because you tend to run a lot of rear brake bias in the Nissan. And with the Audis, it's so easy to lock all of the tires up because of how the four-wheel drive system works. So if you haven't been practicing pit stops at any track, but especially here, it's a very unique pit entry with a slight left-hand turn going into the pit entry, and you want to be going as fast as you possibly can all the way up to the point where you hit that line and hit the speed. And you really got to practice that, because you can have a tendency to swap ends in the Nissan or lock up the four tires in the Audi and go shooting off into the infield.
Bella, we should point out, is our current pole sitter over in the prototypes, and Villy Rolla is back again, holding the pole down in the GTOs. Now, if you want to follow all of this, because obviously there's only so much we can show on our timing and scoring, you can check out gsrc.tv if you want to see all the live timing and scoring as it is here in this race today. Jamie Hall brings it in after only one timed lap, and that is actually going to put him in second. So on the front row, starting position, I have to assume not as important here today, Adam.
Oh, especially not in the Audis. There's so much drafting that's going to go on. So unless you create about a second to 1.2 seconds of a gap on the car behind, they're going to pass you by the time they get to the start finish line, because the Audis just punch such a big hole in the air.
We watch Feldman coming around, yet to set a time, it looks like. Let's see, this is coming through turns NASCAR 3 and 4. Laus Olsen. Let's see what his second time holds. Not quicker, unfortunately. In fact, he was just 3/100ths off, so he'll stay in 8th place. Uwe Trangrade's second lap. He's currently 5th in the GTOs. Can he go any quicker? Yes, he can. A 42.3. And that does not put him up the scoring tower, sadly, so he'll stay in 5th.
You know, one of the biggest things that these Audis are going to have to should have practiced during the week is going through the bus stop chicane. That is where you're going to lose or gain most of your time on this lap. So let's see how Veldman's time is. He's already down below pole setting time, and it looks like he's not going to get a time for this lap, is he? Yes, he is.
Had an off track.
It's 144, so he had an off track as well, unfortunately.
Kramer's second lap also suffered the same fate. Looks like Don Pete got one in, and unfortunately that's going to put him last of the GTOs currently. Veldman, being the only one not getting a lap, will start behind him. Nick Morelli has yet to set a time, so he hopefully got this one clean. No, he didn't. Oh boy, going to be a bad day for Nick Morelli. That is going to wrap up our starters, or our qualifiers. So let's go through the starting grid with Enrique Bella starting on the pole. Fabian Gerber will be starting outside of him. We don't have Justin Albrecht here today, so that puts the nail in the coffin for Justin, hoping for a championship. Nick Mukanos will be starting in 3rd, still chasing Fabian in the points, with Martin Krajcik in P4 today. Then Kitty Engstrom is in P5, followed by Michael Houghton in 6th position. Tobias Gerber, the brother of Fabian, starts in 7th today. Laust Olsen with a P8. Roman Pawlowski joins us once again. He'll be starting 9th, and Fabian Ugluth rounds out the top 10. Yuri Geisen, he'll be starting 11th today. Then you've got Pablo Suarez next to him in 12th. Bert Olsen, if there's any relation to Laus there, he'll be starting 13th, with Guillermo Kramer in P14. And you've got Johnny Bell in the 15th spot. Mike Ruder in 16th, and a newcomer, Bo Butcher, starts 17th. A couple of drivers not able to qualify up in the Nissans: John Hodgson, Carlos Fonseca, Nick Morelli, Ryan Lang, and Bob Loran.
Billy Rollo's going to start off on pole for the Audis, with Jamie Hall starting off in second place. Dennis Neidhart starts from the second row once again in third, but that hasn't been a problem for him in the past weeks. Ernesto Romero is going to start off in fourth position, with Ove Trangrade starting off in fifth. Rob Olnick's going to start off sixth today, with Franco Scurry looking like he's going to jump Philip Lake for the starting positions. That's seventh and eighth positions. Bajuco Scala in ninth, and Reed Miller, Mr. Consistency, starting off in 10th position. Hopping over John Hodgson there, we've got Christopher Chitterling in 11th. Daniel Sadro is going to start off in 12th, with Hideki Koivisto 13th. Dominic Bureau in 14th. Michael Haynes going to start off 15th, with Simo Raba 16th. And Don Peak is going to round out your qualifiers, with Alexander Veldman having not set a time, and that will round out your 40-car field today.
They start to take off on the pace lap. Rolling start in this series. Now, Adam, I'm curious, with the banking around here and with them electing to have the endurance round at this place, is it possible to get sneaky with this strategy and use the slipstream to save some fuel, maybe try and jump someone, or is that a little too difficult in these cars?
Oh, that's absolutely possible around here, especially in the Audis, because they get a lot more of a draft. But the Nissans can do it too, so expect whoever decides to jump out to the lead early, I wouldn't expect someone to challenge them that early for the lead. In the Audis, people tend to be a little bit more eager, but a smart driver will just hang out right behind the guys and let everyone else try and make passes and maybe get into some wrecks early. And then you could just save some fuel behind everyone, especially through NASCAR 3 and 4 exiting the bus stop. And then you might be able to get a much shorter pit stop in by the end of the day.
Pretty cool out here in Florida, especially for May. Of course, it is in the morning here. It's actually just almost 8:30 virtual standard time. It's 68 degrees Fahrenheit on the track surface with very light winds. So drivers will need to get the tires up to temperature, but that won't take too long as they get ready to head onto the oval on the pace lap here. Fabian Gerber ready to face off with Van Bella once again. Enrique sporting a new paint, though, I'm noticing. Not used to seeing that one as we look back at our GTOs. The traditional paint, though, of the Glacier Racing team, which has been dominant in those four-wheel drive cars.
Yeah, the GTOs are interestingly backing off significantly from the GTPs. We haven't seen this much backing off before. They're about 12 seconds behind right now and dropping back even farther. So I think they want to be behind the bus stop, Villy Rolla does, before they get the green flag, because these drivers do go on green.
Yeah, and that'll be a lot of draft that they will be getting down into turn one, the very tricky braking of turn one. So they'll be coming in with a head of steam, and we could see some fireworks into there, especially with these Audi GTOs. Speaking of the bus stop, the prototypes now coming to that specific spot. Sometimes we've seen some drivers cut through the bus stop here in the pace lap. They are allowed to do that. Let's see if anybody elects to try and sneak through there. Looks like no, they're all going to weave their way through that chicane. And then they're back onto NASCAR 3 and 4 once again. Very, very fast track. The cars get to stretch their legs out on this course. Should be a lot of fun to see. Hopefully we don't get split up too early, because honestly, half the fun is the draft battles that we see going on throughout the races here.
Yeah, it's nice to see all these drivers behaving well as we go through the bus stop. It's a really challenging pace lap here because of how tight you are with the cars around you. But yeah, these GTPs, it's a big field for both classes today, and it's going to be very interesting to see who gets the upper hand. At a track like this, it's really kind of come down to who masters that infield best for the GTPs and who masters the bus stop best for the GTOs.
All right, Porsche pace car peels off. Van Bella goes right away. He does not wait. Green flag is out here for round 10. And look at this. This is going to give Mucanos a good jump on Gerber. Gerber breaks late behind them. I see a car actually going off into the runoff there. Someone having a big mistake on this circuit. as it looks like we are safely through the first corner. Let's go back to the GTOs.
GTO's still going across the line right now. Jamie Hall actually leads as they cross the line with Villy Rolla in second. Jamie's going to actually try and pull ahead of Villy Rolla on the outside. He's going to be able to do it this time. Looks like most of the Audis actually clean through the first corner. So as they keep going, they're going to string out a little bit single file here, but some good battles going on in the midfield.
And Tobias Gerber was the one that missed the first corner, but he kept going. Now, this is going to be a serious penalty. He will have to come in. This isn't even a slowdown. He'll be given a black flag, but Van Bella continues to lead behind him. I think we had, we got a little bit of a battle at the back of them. Looks like most of them are single file. As you can see, we've hit the oval portion of the lap. Van Bella with a big 1 second gap back to Gerber, who's still dealing with Mukanos as they come up to the bus stop for the first time.
Yeah, these GTPs are going to, wow, take a look at that. That's quite a decent lead for Ben Bella. That's actually going to break the draft to Fabian Gerber behind. Nick Mukanos is going to be in the best position to try and make a draft pass, but if he's smart, he'll just sit behind Gerber and save that fuel.
Tobias has already hit pit lane. Only thing I can think maybe happened is he forgot to put race fuel in. This is very bizarre as we take a look at the lead for the Audis. Jamie Hall still leading ahead of Villy Rolla, having taken that lead away. Rolla's got Neidhart, our championship leader, hot on his heels.
And so Fabian Gerber has taken a pit stop, and he's in there for quite a while, so he's going to serve his penalty and get some fuel. But these leaders in the GTPs are closed up a little bit. Fabian Gerber did decide to try and close the gap a little bit, so that draft a little bit more effective than I thought it was going to be today. So Ben Bella either is fuel saving, or either that or Fabian Gerber is still pushing right now.
That was Tobias Gerber that is in pit lane. As you see, the top three starting to pull a little bit away from everybody else as there's a battle behind them for fourth. Engstrom and Krajcik were side by side along with Houghton giving watch. They're coming back onto the oval as well. Ooh, and a little bit of a slip up from Houghton there as the turbo of that Nissan kicks in. That's going to allow Krajcik to stretch away.
And a couple updates from the Audi pack. Philip Lake has jumped up quite a few positions up to fourth. He's now onto the back of Dennis Neidhart for that third position. He's now up to this battling train in the lead. But look at these GTP drivers go through the bus stop. This is such a challenging spot to try and go through in any car, but especially in these older cars that have so much power under their right foot. It can just be really challenging to try and keep the car planted as they go through there.
This is the closest fight at the top of this field, but up at the lead of the Audis, it's even closer because Jamie Hall has Villy Rolla now directly behind him. Billy's going to elect to back out of it. I think he knows the deal. He's an experienced driver in this series and has run multiple races at this track in this car. Neidhart with a good exit coming off the bus stop. Does he elect to try and make something happen? Nope, he's going to sit behind. That's a lift.
Oh, yeah, that's a definite lift, and he's definitely going to be trying to save some fuel around here, but Phil Lake looks like he's not waiting around. He's going to try and make the pass on Neidhart right now.
He wants that track position. Here comes Olenek as well. We're going to go 2 by 2 into the first corner. Very shallow for those cars at the bottom. Lake gives plenty of room around the outside, but the tires start to slip as he gets on the throttle. Still side by side and a big wreck behind them. Romero and Scurry got together as these two settle out this fight down into the International Horseshoe, and Neidhart is going to take it away from Rolla as well as Lake getting up to second.
Neidhart cannot afford for Lake to take positions over him in order if he wants to retain that championship lead. He may have a little bit of a buffer, but if he gets wrecked out today and Phil Lake escapes, that's going to be a big problem for him. So expect him to ride Lake's bumper the whole time.
Look at the replay of Romero's incident. It was just in the background of the screen. Caught my eye. And it was a case of going side by side through the little chicane that they've got here. And you could see it came out with dire results with that pit wall right there to the left.
Yeah, and this is just one of those issues that you deal with in the Audis. They're trying to go through this very sharp corner, and it was side by side, and Romero had to back out of it because he almost made contact with the car ahead of him, and that's what ended up getting him into Franco. Oh, Phil Lake had a really bad bus stop there. We're going to jump and take a look at this battle, but he had a bad bus stop. This is allowing Jamie Hall to get away. Phil Lake and Jamie Hall teammates, remember. But we do know that they don't talk during these races, but Dennis Neidhart can't wait around. He's got to try and go by.
He's going to use this slipstream this time. See if he can keep up with Jamie Hall as they come down to the first corner once again through the tri-oval into the braking. He's going to have to be deep, and he is. Goes way around the outside of Phil Lake. Here comes Rob Olenek as well, sticking his nose in. That's not quite going to work, so Olenek stays in fourth. Rolla all the way back to fifth from the pole, watching all this happen and seeing Hall scamper away.
Driving these GTOs around this track is so much fun. You feel like you have all the room in the world to race, and you have so much runoff, so much to work with, and even when it gets narrow in here, it still feels like a wide track, and these drivers really showing us just how much draft these GTOs can get.
Just an update on our prototype lead. Van Bell continues to lead by about a second over Fabian Gerber. Mukanos has dropped away. He's nearly 2 seconds back, and then you got an even bigger gap back to Ingstrom. So everything's spread apart up there. We watch these guys now come onto the oval one more time. It's interesting to see Neidhart start to pull away from Phil Lake there in the infield section. Clearly very fast in that twisty bit. Fast enough that he is back on the tail of Jamie Hall now as they break for the bus stop. So crisis averted for the Anvil.
Yeah, for sure. Phil Lake has to start getting this bus stop down. He does that time quite a bit better than Rob Olenek behind him. That's going to allow Billy Rolla to try and make a move. But look at this. Look at Dennis Neidhart. The speed difference is ridiculous down there. It's almost 3-4 miles an hour, and that may not seem like much, but when you're standing still, 5 miles an hour is a coasting car down your driveway. But he's now backed off. Phil Lake to his inside. This is awesome stuff from these GTOs. Phil into the lead.
Where is he? He's got to complete the pass down into the first corner. Looks like he's got it done. There seems to be a little bit of give and take among the drivers, at least. It doesn't look as frantic as it could be, and not everyone is super aggressive into that first turn. Speaking of aggressive, here comes Rolla down into the International Horseshoe, trying to overtake Rob Olenek. Olenek rebuffs him.
Yeah, and these drivers, remember, this is the endurance format, and these drivers, you have to shift into a different mindset. You cannot be super aggressive before you start your pit stops. Once you hit your pit stops, then you can turn up the wick a little bit because everything's going to have played out. But at this point, I mean, Phil Lake's in the lead, but he also is the one burning the most fuel. So we're going to see whether or not Jamie Hall's going to swap him here when they get onto the straights.
The front of the prototypes. Gerber is closed in by about a tenth. Oh, and did Kraytrick just have a problem?
Kraytrick and Ingstrom just both overshot turn one in the GTPs.
And guess who capitalized? Michael Houghton loved this one. The Texan, you can see watching there from the gray and blue machine at the back of this trio. Keep an eye on him as these two go side by side. Just patiently waits. They both go wide. A little bit of a bobble there too. I think that was Ingstrom. The red and white.
Ingstrom was trying to carry speed through the corner and try and make sure that he could secure the block, whereas that was really scary moments for Kraytrick there. Where it went very wide.
And lead's going to change for the GTOs. Another driver finding the slingshot, or maybe it won't. Rob Olenek had a head of steam. He's trying to get by Lake, and he's going to complete it. Neidhart side by side through the chicane. They come up to the International Horseshoe.
Believe it or not, on the outside of turn one, it's a little bit of a negative banking. It just kind of falls away from you on this scan of the track. And that's just due to the fact that it was not actually really graded to be a road course at the time. They flattened that out with when they repaved it. But at the time, it fell away from you. And that's the problem these Audi drivers are having. They can't get the traction on the outside of turn one that they expect from the new track.
So the new order there is Olenek, Neidhart, Lake, Hall, and Rolla. If they keep fighting like this, I'm noticing Miller bringing along Trangerade and Chitterling here. This could become an 8-car fight for the lead soon.
Yeah, definitely. And these Audis, with all their draft, I mean, they're very spread out this time around. So depending on who gets a better bus stop, I think we'll keep seeing swaps like this happen, but these drivers have got to be careful. The Audis are not going to be changing tires at the pit stop. And we haven't talked about the weather yet, but it is very ideal today. A 70-degree track temperature, so tire wear shouldn't be a huge issue here. But if you keep heating those tires up into turn 1, that's heat cycles you're putting through it, and that could be a problem. But look at this. Dennis Neidhart right on the back of Rob Olenek. I think he does want the lead.
Watching that, the wind picked up a little bit since qualifying as well. Hopefully that doesn't continue to increase.
We're going to stay here.
What'd you see?
Bo Butcher unfortunately got punted into the pit lane. We'll pick that up in a moment, but...
And as we ride on board down through turns 1, 2, and 3 here, it's going to be Olenek up to the lead this time for sure. And Neidhart still challenging, and they have definitely been caught by Reed Miller at this point. He is now on the back of Rolla. Up in the prototypes, they've caught the lap traffic of the Audis for the first time. That 4th place is being complicated because of that. Houghton still leads them as they go by Simo Raba. It looks like Ingstrom's going to be able to sneak through, and just barely Martin Krajcik manages to find space.
Yeah, and look at this. Michael Houghton and Kitty Ingstrom are going to have to wrestle with the Audis here. Audis get a much better launch off the corner than the GTPs. Houghton's able to get by, but is Ingstrom going to be able to get by? Yes, he is. Michael Haynes very slow on the apex of the corner, so that allows them to go by. So this is very sketchy stuff. Oh no, Houghton drifts a little bit wide. This is Ingstrom's opportunity, but he can't get on the throttle too much, otherwise he'll spin the rear tires. He has to be measured with it.
I think he saved it pretty well. Up in front of him, Ernesto Romero dealing with his damage. Shouldn't cause them too much of an issue. He'll stay high and swing back down low. Whoop, maybe. A little miscommunication there with Ingstrom. Having to make sure he doesn't run into him.
And I'm actually looking at the GTP lead right now. Enrico Benbella and Fabian Gerber are closing as well. But look at this battle for the GTO lead. It's almost 3 wide as they go across the line here. That's Dennis Neidhart, who's jumped to the lead ahead of Rob Olenek, Phil Lake on the outside of the turn. And these GTOs just do not give up.
Don't need to go to it. We had a self-spin for Nick Morelli. He kept it going without hitting anything. This is where the action is. Down into the International Horseshoe, and not only do they have Reed Miller, looks like they've also got Trangarade catching up to the back of them. Chitterling has Leskala in there. Hugo is not having a good day here, down in 7th right now. Excuse me, no, 9th even. Usually he's fighting for wins.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have to worry too much about it because with the way that this lead in the battle in the GTOs is going, he's going to be able to close up on those guys pretty effectively, so he doesn't have to be too concerned. He can sit behind Chitterling and try and draw himself up to that battle right now.
One note, Banbella still leading Gerber, and that has been fluctuating with the traffic. At times it's down to 0.6 of a second. It's back up to 1.1. We've seen this a lot, that the lead in the prototypes can be greatly affected by when they catch traffic.
Definitely, that is the case. Look at this train as they're going through the bus stop with the Audis. This is actually slowing those in the back down. Juko Leskala now up ahead of Christopher Chitterling, actually, and he's going to try and close the gap to these guys. Ove Trangarad's starting to fall off the back of this train in 7th. But let's see what happens as they cross the line here. This is when things get chaotic into turn 1. It's only a matter of time, Joe, before somebody wrecks in this chaos.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they've got a slow Bo Butcher in front of them. Not sure why the Nissan is quite that slow. They're breaking into turn 1, having to watch out for him. He's actually going to spin just in front of them, holds the brakes. Nicely done by Bo to keep out of the way. Nobody manages to hit him.
That's one way to avoid dealing with complicated multi-class action, is to spin over to the side of the road. Bo holding the brake there. He now backs out of it and gets going again. But the Audi's doing a great job to keep going and try and maintain the lead. It looks like Benbella's having some connection issues.
No, he wrecked. He wrecked into turn 1, and it was all on his own. He outbraked himself into the first corner, and he fell victim to the infamous pit wall exit.
Oh, no. Yeah, you're right. Here it is. We're going to take a look at it. This is a heartbreaking wreck for any driver.
I've done that before myself in an endurance race. You feel absolutely foolish, but it's so easy to do with that heavy braking. Fabian Gerber inherits the lead. Mukanos, who's a whole 5.8 seconds back, is not looking like he's in a good position to catch him. So we now take a look at Neidhart once again. That's Hodgson there in the prototype that's kind of getting in the way of these guys.
Yeah, and Hodgson is in a GTP, but he's on the same lap as these guys, so Des Neidhart did not have to try and pull over for him, but this has actually created a 0.6 second gap back, and Hodgson so slow on the straights, he's even slower than the Audis right now. This could really break up that lead battle.
I think something's wrong with that car, and this must be similar to what Butcher was experiencing as they try and go around the outside of him. Oh, look at it stack up back there. My goodness. Ruola and Miller, Leskala, all having to try and avoid.
Our leader is caught up in this battle now. He's down good and trying to get past Ove Trankering.
Is that Hill? Hill is off. Or excuse me, Hall, rather. Jamie Hall into the tire barriers, into the International Horseshoe. Did he have help? No, this was all on his own.
Yeah, it's very sketchy for Hall. I think Hall just outbroke himself into the International Horseshoe. I think he was worried about the traffic. I mean, it is extremely chaotic up here in the GTO lead. These guys are right close together.
You're going to see, I think he gets a little unsighted with, I think that's his teammate in front of him. And as he just realizes too late, he's coming in too hot. He tries to avoid, tips the grass, and from there he was a passenger. Boy, it's been a wild one here for the GTOs. Neidhart leads Olenek, leads Lake, leads Miller. Splitting those two, Miller and Lake, though, you've got Gerber and Hodgson. Gerber trying to tiptoe his way around, using that gap that he pulled to play the safe game. And
yeah,
he's gonna be rewarded here.
Fabian has done a really good job of navigating through this traffic, and Nick McConos has actually lost about 2 seconds to him. Nick McConos has inherited second ever since we've had Bambella have that wreck. So Fabian Gerber now in clear air. Let's see how much he gaps Nick right now.
Oh, and Reed Miller starts to lose it. He sticks it into the tire barrier. Reed Miller makes the exact same mistake, and he has had to take a tow into the pits with that hard hit. Number 16, unfortunately, finds himself hitting pit lane way earlier than scheduled.
Let's take a look at it here. He crosses the start-finish line. He gets in onto the brakes into this corner. I think he locks up the... No, he doesn't. He just gets the weight undone in the car. Oh, and just unfortunately got a little bit into that four-wheel drive drift.
Boy, this isn't really a track I usually say that attrition is a factor, but it's starting to look like that might be the case today.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it. We're looking at Rob Olenek in second place in the GTOs. This is Nick McConos, our second place driver in the GTPs, going by. Nick is now 4.5 seconds behind our leader Fabian Gerber, and that's just because of the traffic. But now we've got a breakaway going on a little bit here in the GTOs. We have Dennis Neidhart in the lead with Rob Olenek in second, Phil Lake in third. Then it is about 2 seconds back to Shuka Leskala in the fourth position. And then he's got a train behind him back to Christopher Chidwilling in eighth.
That's Hodgson that you see in the blue and
Kitty
white
Engstrom's
machine.
off.
Ooh, and he was in third before, wasn't he? What
yeah, and this was
here?
this was a mistake going through the bus stop. He exited the bus stop with a little bit too much power, clips that inside curb, and looks like the right rear tire just came unseated from the ground a little bit, and it spins him out here.
Good catch, though. Keeps it from going right back to the barriers, and a lot of bumps here going from the pavement to grass. He might have damage from that, which could be critical on the oval portion. Straight line speed really makes a difference today. We've already seen it with some of our GTPs even being overtaken by the GTOs. Speaking of the mid-pack in the prototypes, Krejcik and Olsen now fighting for fourth just outside of the podium. Oh, and Olsen goes off. Olsen skitters off wide in the Western Horseshoe and loses positions.
Yeah, that was just an outbreaking moment there for Laus Olsen. I mean, it's so easy to do around here, especially with how many bumps that we have. These cars in this old age do not have any sort of ABS like the GT3s do that we see race around here sometimes. But Laus getting back on the loud pedal. He's going to try and make a move on Fabian Jungbluth, possibly when they get past the chicane. But it's complete chaos right now with the multi-class. These guys are having a really hard time navigating it, more than I was expecting.
That will move Krejcik up to 4th and Pawlowski into the top 5 now. Oh, 3 wide here, maybe?
Yeah, 3 wide's doable. Oh, goodness, Laus cutting it very close with Jamie Hall there. Fabian Jungbluth stuck on the high side now, so he could try and outbreak him around the outside of turn 1, but they're gaining on Ove Trengray and Jukka Leskola up ahead of them. They're going to have to deal with them through the infield. Fabian Jungbluth going to back off a little bit here and let Laus go by.
Glad to see everybody able to come out the other side of that one. Not sure if we'll get everybody out the other side of this battle for the GTO lead, though, especially with all the traffic coming through. Still Neidhart leading Olenek and Lake in that 3-car breakaway. But not only do they have Hodgson back there, but Ingstrom's trying to lap them. Pawlowski is in there. Roman trying to pick his side carefully. It'll be a lot trickier through this infield portion that it is on the oval. He's going to manage to get by Lake. Maybe no. Look at that power that 4-wheel drive gives the GTO.
Yeah, and that's the tough spot. That's why you saw Phil go out there. He wanted the outside so he could get the good drive off of the corner. This means that he doesn't lose as much time to Rob Olenek instead of trying to make the sharp apex of the inside of the corner. Kitty Ingstrom's going to easily get by, but he did lose significant time to Roman there as they were trying to get through that traffic. So Rob Olenek's going to move over to the right side, and so this is interesting. Dennis Neidhart's going to hold up Kitty a little bit as they go through the bus stop chicane now.
Oh, look at, behind them, Jungbluth and Olsen side by side, and this is horrible for Rolla and Leskola. They lose a ton more time. Actually didn't work out well for Jungbluth as well, because Laus Olsen pulled a gap of about 1.2 seconds just in that one corner.
And here comes Leskola around the outside of Rolla. Leskola trying to recover from his bad start. He was down in 9th just a couple of laps ago. Here he is passing Rolla for 4th. I don't know if Rolla's going to give up on this, though. Here we go into the braking zone for 1. They both brake about the same time. Leskola's got the outside, which is usually the advantage, but not on this older surface. Oh boy, Rolla with a much better drive out. Ove Trankrade trying to go side by side with Yuri Gearson behind him as well. So a lot of stuff breaking out here.
And look at that. That is Ove Trangerade being challenged by Jamie Hall into the corner just behind Geisen. Hall getting back into things. He's up to 7th, looking for 6th. It doesn't work out in the International Horseshoe. Remember, he had an off. He had a little bit of contact with the wall. Off into the grass goes Trangerade. Takes out a ton of cones. Gets the car load up somehow and doesn't lose the spot.
Oh, that was a great recovery from Ove. He just went a little bit hot through the kink there, and that's something you have to worry about in the Audis. You go if you go too hot through that corner and you're not at the right approach angle, you absolutely will push wide. But Jamie Hall, fortunate that incident with the outside of the International Horseshoe and those tire bearings did not cause too much damage. It looks like he's still at full strength.
It looks like it. And he's taking good advantage of all these drivers battling in front of him. Speaking of which, oh my goodness, we didn't see it on screen, but in front of him, Olenek and Jungbluth nearly had it coming together through the bus stop. This has got to be frustrating, Rob, because now here comes Phil Lake as they lose touch with Dennis Neidhart, who is starting to scamper away. To the inside, it's Olenek in the yellow machine. To the outside, it's Lake and the orange, blue, and black. He's got the momentum. He's got the braking. Lake's going to take 2nd away.
Yeah, Olenik's been making just too many mistakes. Phil Lake has to make this move to try and gain his way back up to Dennis Neidhart. If Olenek was a little bit more consistent, maybe Phil could stay behind him and try and get a little bit more fuel in the tank, keep that fuel for the pit stops. We're 35 minutes into this race. Some of these drivers are going to try and split it in half, but expect the Audis to go as far as their tank will let them this race to try and save as much time as possible on that fuel stop.
Again, if you're a fan of one of the drivers in the mid or the back-to-back, there was a mistake from Neidhart going into the Western Horseshoe. He got away with it, though. Went way wide down into there. But if you're a fan of one of the drivers that is not up at the front like this, you can check them out at gsrc.tv, where we've got timing and scoring, live timing and scoring. You can keep track of your favorite driver over there. Is Neidhart on screen on the oval at this point.
Yeah, and that mistake did claw Phil back about 3/4 of a second, so this is going to be better for him. He's going to take the brakes here as Jörg Gerson goes by, and this is going to allow him to get a little bit of draft off the corner, not as much as he would get if he was behind Dennis Neidhart.
We got another victory for turn one. Sorry, one of our front runners, Nick Mukanos. Nick Mukanos is in the pit wall like we've seen 2 other times already. What is going on in that turn?
It's just the bumpy surface. Most of these drivers have been driving on the newer repave, and you'll see him just clip a bump here as he exits turn 1 right about there, and he just flies into the inside wall there.
In fact, I think he gets stuck. So he's also going to have to take a tow. Gerber still leads. Houghton now in second place, but a distant 14 seconds behind Fabian. Martin Krejcik onto the podium now. Boy, just keep it on the pavement and you're going to have a good day today.
It sure seems like it. Unfortunately for Phil Lake, as we were watching that replay, Rob Olenek got back by him, and now they've lost touch significantly with Dennis Neidhart down to about 2 seconds. So that battling that they had between each other through 1 and 2 has made them lose touch with the leader. And looks like Phil Lake is just going to back off a little bit here.
Looks like we have the pass on replay. Since we got distracted by Mukanos there for a second, let's take a look at this one. Hall starts to approach using 2 slipstreams, and Rolla heads on in. Rolla elects to pit, so he thinks he can be faster without any of this craziness going on. Also, a quick note, don't need a replay of it, but Roman Pavlowski had a self-spin out of the bus stop. That sends him down to 7th place.
Yeah, so we're taking a look at Rob Olenek once again. He's got a Phil Lake behind him, about 1/3 of a second behind. Phil gaining very quickly. And so let's see whether or not they're trying to do the swap here, because that might make them faster because they have draft. Looks like Rob is going to be okay with that and let Phil by. So this is exactly what they need to do to try and get back in contact with Dennis Neidhart. They need to keep swapping like this. And that way they're getting draft. Dennis is out on his own. So this way, if they keep swapping, they will continue to gain time on the straights to Dennis.
Unfortunately, that last lap doesn't seem to be quicker for Phil Lake, as it was about a 10th faster for Neidhart. 4th place behind them, Jamie Hall. With all that's been going on, he's nearly up to the podium. He's in 4th. He's about 4.5 seconds back. If he can work together with Leskala, Trankerade, and, well, I guess these prototypes that have suddenly joined them, they could potentially work their way up to the leaders.
Yeah, these prototypes are going to be a little bit troublesome, though, because they're battling for position as well. They're not going to want to wait. Oh, no! Oh, that was very close for Mike Ruder behind, and he does, in fact, spin. But that was just because he had to get on the brakes a little bit too hot there.
And he almost took out Fonseca. Just tried to move a little bit too quickly. We didn't see it on screen. Gonna watch Ruder's spin, and then it was the number 23 who took very fast avoiding action. There was inches between them. Here's Mike Hoosier losing it, coming out of turn 6. Easy to do in that slow corner. And, oh!
Yeah, and then if we could actually stay on this and look at Guilherme Kramer as he went through the bus stop just a couple seconds up ahead of that. In the 10th position.
Sure we have that. That's the number 31.
Here he is. He
Oh.
goes by 3 GTOs going into the bus stop and very close to Zuko up ahead of him. That was very stressful stuff for him.
Yeah. Fabian Jungbluth, unfortunately, having a self-spin out of turn 1. He is going to fall back to 8th. He may have caught the wall a little bit there. trying to see from my angle if we've got damage on him. But we've got to stay on this battle here with Hall, as he's been passed by Leskala. That gap has gone up, unfortunately. It's 5.1 instead of 4.5 now.
Yeah, and Joe, they're just not really working together right now, and that's exactly what you're talking about, that gap going up. They're actually very much battling with one another, and the thing is that, like, this battle's going to come down to either the pit stop or the last lap of the race, so really you do want to work together with the drivers around you right now, especially as we're starting to get into pit stop time.
For those wondering what happened to Ruola, well, his pit stop has put him well towards the back, 14th, and on his own. That might sound good in a normal road racing situation, but here at Daytona, that actually might shoot himself in the foot.
There we had Carlos Fonseca going through, and looks like the GTPs have all taken notes from Kramer as far as that being able to work. Obe Tranger actually got a bad exit behind these guys, so this is a good opportunity for Jamie Hall to try and make that pass if he wants to make it, or work together with Juco, but he might just stay in line with him if he doesn't think Juco's going to work with him. Let's see how they're all both going, all of them are going to come to the pits.
That almost looked coordinated.
I mean, I would.
Yeah, same. If you're smart. I don't think anybody's sped on their way in. Very much pushing it, though. So where is this going to put them in relation to Vili? Vili's actually coming up to the bus stop right now. Looks like a lot of them taking tires, interestingly.
And eagle-eyed viewers have noticed that Phil Lake also in the pit lane during this time. He's taking his pit stop. He's going to pull away right now. Dennis Neidhart did continue on, so that battle for first. This is an undercut we're talking about going on right now.
Ooh, Hall is in long. Hall is in very long. Uh-oh.
Oh, he stalled
Something may have happened. Oh, no. Where's Rolla?
Already gone.
Rolla, yeah, but he is behind a bunch of other cars that were ahead of, or that were behind him before. Leskala's beat him out. Looks like Olenek is way far ahead. I think this didn't work out how the Finn wanted.
No, it definitely did not, and that's because he just did not have the draft of the rest of the drivers either. So Yuko Leskala is going to be the first that he's going to catch. He's going to have to pass on older tires.
I think Leskala is within drafting range, so that's good news for him. They might just be within range of Rob Olenek, but Phil Lake is distantly ahead of them. They are probably not catching him unless they have some miraculous pace or work very well together in these final 30 minutes of the race. And Dennis Neidhart is responding. Neidhart is pitting now.
All right, so when he came into the pits, it looks like Phil was behind by a good 32 seconds. The pit delta right now is 42 seconds, so it's possible that Phil could do the undercut here. Let's see how this works out. Dennis up on the jacks right now. Let's see how long it takes him to get back down off the jacks. It looks like we have a car with a blown engine that just went across the start-finish line. We'll take a look at that shortly, but here comes Phil Lake through 3 and 4. Neidhart down off the jack, still taking fuel. Now he goes. Phil Lake about to cross the start-finish line now. This is going to be very tight on the exit. I think Phil's going to get him. I think the undercut worked, Joe.
I think you're absolutely right. There he goes. It's a shorter run here on the pit exit, but still momentum is in favor of Phil Lake. So effectively, he will be our leader once they cycle through. We're waiting on Scurry, Sadro, Romero, and Veldman to pit. Looks like we got some of our front runners in the prototypes pitting. Houghton is in, Krejcik, Ingstrom, Gerber, and Olsen stay out.
So
these are
Gerber
our
and
first scheduled stops.
Gerber and Olsen stay up. Pawlowski stays out as well. So these first pit runners, Michael Houghton, the leader of these guys as they come into the pits. I just want to update you that Phil Lake does have about 2 seconds on Dennis Neidhart, but expect Dennis to close that gap for the GTO provisional lead.
I'll also tell you that Rolla and looks like Leskala have caught Rob Olenek. That's within about 0.6 of a second. So this group of 3 cars should be able to work together if they want to. But that's a big if, especially what we've seen here through much of the race. Not many of the GTOs seem to be willing to work together after the first few laps. They're trying to lap Veldman now.
Well, Veldman's actually on the same lap, but he just has not taken his pit stop yet. So this means that Veldman's going to be a little bit slower through the twistier sections. But Rob Olnick playing it very close right now, almost side drafting Veldman. Let's see whether Veldman decides to elect to go to the pits this time. He does not. This is going to complicate matters. Look at that. That's
oh,
no! Rolla trying to drift it through the infield. I think he's going to manage to do it, but we got this battle for 6th and 7th. There goes Rolla getting back on track, but he's lost touch and he might have damage. Olsen into the pits.
I couldn't tell if maybe he was trying to pit in and Veldman didn't communicate it well enough or what happened there. Veldman had a very hard hit into the wall. Let's take another look at it, see if maybe a second glance gives us more information. Because he was holding low, but then he didn't really head to pit lane as soon as you would usually need to.
So Veldman held low. Rolla looked like he went to the inside of Veldman and then just couldn't decide whether he wanted to go below the O line through the infield or not. And we're going to see it here as they close in on the front strip.
It's right down there. Yeah, I almost kind of put that one on Villy a little bit. It looked like he was going for a gap that just wasn't going to be there.
Yeah, it really wasn't there, and that yellow line, you're not supposed to go below it, but as we've been watching this, Dennis Neidhart has closed the gap to Phil Lake. This is for the provisional lead of the GTO class. These two guys are going to be nose to tail for the rest of this race unless they get broken up by traffic, Joe. Neidhart going for the pack.
Dennis has been unstoppable this season. A whopping 7 wins so far. He's looking for number 8. Lake is going to try and stop him. But as he goes by, another lap led for the number 2 machine. Lake is the only other driver to have taken victories this season. Naturally, he is currently running second. But it is going to take a lot for him to try and beat him to the championship. Even taking every single win, if Dennis finishes second, he still wraps up the crown here for this season.
Yeah, and Phil is going to have to turn up the wick here because Dennis is not going to let off. Dennis is going to go, and if he gets off into the distance, Phil is not going to be able to close that gap with the draft. So Phil has to stay attached to the back of Dennis Neidhart within about a second in order to keep that draft effective.
We've had most of our drivers pit in the GTOs, excuse me. Sadro is the last one holding out, and he is currently leading the race, but he's going to be cycled back probably to around 8th, 9th, or 10th. We're waiting on Fabian Gerber, Roman Pawlowski, Yuri Geisen, and Fabian Jungbluth to pit in the prototypes. Those are your top 4. In fact, that 4th place is going to change hands, I think, because Michael Houghton has gained, and our leader actually just pitted in the prototypes. Gerber's come in. I can tell you that Houghton made an easy pass on Jungbluth. Sorry, go ahead.
Fabian, yeah, Gerber had a really clean entry into pit row. Let's see whether he hits his box. A couple of GTPs have missed theirs, but wow, Fabian nails it. And so he's going to be into the pit lane right now. I mean, Houghton was 30 seconds behind, so he's not really going to have a decent option to try and get through. But we're taking a look at Pearson, Pawlowski rather, as he goes around as well. He's next in line to take a pit stop.
And Houghton had a moment. He narrowly avoided Christopher Chitterling, who spun in the bus stop right in front of him. Wonder if we could get a replay on this one, as it just happened. Chitterling was doing pretty decent. Watch for a light blue car. There he goes. Perfect timing there for Houghton.
As
just
Houghton
to be able
would
to
say,
sneak through on the racing line.
As Houghton would say, Joe, yeehaw!
As only he can. Still ahead of Jungbluth, but as we mentioned, not even close to Gerber.
Joe, we've had another victim of the inside pit wall. Bob Loran is our next victim. He's now taken a tow.
He had some help on this one, though. Martin Krejcik got into him, but it was, I think, a slight bit of ghost contact.
Let's see it here.
Yeah,
That
oh, yeah.
was.
I feel bad for Lauren there. You can see he had to take it into pit lane. And Tobias Gerber for his, unfortunately, second stop for the day. Still don't know exactly why he had to come in at the start, other than cutting the course. Up in the lead of the GTOs, Dennis Neidhart and Phil Lake still together. I suspect, especially because both Lake and Neidhart are no fools, this is going to come down to the last lap between them.
Absolutely. Phil Lake has been backing off every single time he's had a run on Dennis Neidhart. But that being said, Dennis knows about these runs, and he's trying to measure Phil Lake's pace as he gains each time on that front stretch. And each lap that goes by, Dennis Neidhart gains more information on where Phil's going to go and how much of a run he has depending on when they exit the bus stop. So this is just more data in the bank for Dennis to try and make a defense. And Phil Lake, if he's going to try and surprise Dennis, he's going to have to do it before the last lap.
I was going to ask, is there anything that potentially Dennis could do to trip him up on the last lap if he's close to him? Can you back up your braking to kind of plug him up at the apex, or is there anything that works in that realm?
The trick there is to be very slow through the bus stop chicane. You may think that puts you at a disadvantage when you exit, but if Phil Lake gets upset and gets a little bit slidey through the bus stop and you still have traction, you can power out of it, and Phil will be too far behind with too much of a speed difference in the negative to try and make it by. Behind
them, Yuko gets into third past Olenek. Oh, but Olenek is very fast compared to Leskala. In fact, does Leskala have a slowdown, or is he just that slow off the corner? They both recover. Rob getting the slipstream as that is Geisen going up by them on the high side. It's going to look the long way around. They're going to be joined by another friend, Pawlowski. Will he make it 3 wide as Geisen goes in and pits momentarily? The braking should help out for Roman to keep them out of the way. Olenek around the outside of Leskala. Tries to come down to the apex, but the Finn is still there, powering off the corner, using that 4-wheel drive, and he gets it done. That is the best outside move I have seen today from a GTO driver. He really squatted the car, got it to rotate, and then slammed the throttle and just powered off with the 4-wheel drive. That was a perfect textbook move on how to do that pass here at this old Scanda Daytona. Worth noting that Pawlowski staying out, he still needs to take his pit stop, and that moves him temporarily up to second place. That's going to be given back to Houghton pretty soon, since Michael's only about 5 seconds behind Roman. I think we're looking at probably Roman being slotted back to around 7th place or so. So we continue to watch Yuko stay in the slipstream of Olenek and then duck out to the outside. Side by side of the bus stops. Not going to be the quick way through. Rob knows it. He backs out. That's because Rob knows that he can get the advantage into 1 again. But here they have Michael Houghton tucked in behind them. This is going to slow Houghton a little bit. And actually, while they've been battling like this, they've actually brought Billy Rolla and Ove Trangrade into the battle as well. They're about 1.2 behind. And this draft should be enough to bring them up to the 4 by the time they get around here next time. And this is all happening about 7 seconds behind our top 2. There's the 2 battles that you can see, 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th. No pass this time into the first turn for Robbo. Roll is going to hold ahead of Ove Trangrade. Everybody in the GTOs has pitted, so this is now got to be done on track between these leaders. Yeah, the leaders of the GTOs, Dennis and Phil, are both lapping faster than these 4 drivers behind them. So they're definitely going to keep that gap built. But Villi and Trangrade are both right on the back of Robbo and Juco. 4-car fight to settle out who gets the last spot on the podium. Look at the good exit off of the Western Horseshoe, though, both from Yuko and Rob. pulling at least a little bit of a gap. Surprised that Rolla is leading the two between himself and Ove, because remember, we saw him have that hard contact. Guess it didn't hurt him as bad as you would have expected.
No, and with the draft these GTOs are getting, I mean, Billy just like recently passed Rob about 2 laps ago, and then they had this draft from past Ove rather 2 laps ago, and now they have the draft from Rob Olenek. So these two drivers have been playing their cards right, and Billy Rolla has decided, I want to go up there and get third, and I'm in the draft. Let's jump out.
It's like we got the last of our front runners in the prototypes coming in as Pawlowski comes in right on board with Billy Rolla now, watching this battle, and it looks like that's Krejcik who's going to try and split the middle between the two of them, threading the needle. Olenek has the advantage over Leskala, but Leskala comes back in the braking zone as they've got traffic coming out of the pit lane as well. That's Nick Morelli. Looks like it's going to go in favor of Olenek, and here comes Engstrom as well.
Engstrom very tight on the inside of that corner, almost making it 3 wide as they went through that for that couple of turns there. Ove Trangarade has actually fallen off the back of this a little bit. I think he assumed that a wreck was going to happen and he backed out of it, but now he's caught up to the back of Billy. And here's Kitty trying to go around the outside of these guys. It's very hard to get traction out there in the GTPs. So he's managed to do it, but he's going to hold up Juco a little bit as they exit the corner. But this is just going to make Robbo more susceptible when they get up to the bus stop.
And Engstrom actually has decent reason to try and be pushing, because Martin Krejcik's about 3 seconds up the road, and that is for 3rd place. So these are high positions that these prototypes are fighting for, even though it's just as important here for the GTOs. Finally, they're going to leave them be. Your order and of those GTOs: 3rd is Olenek, 4th is Leskala, 5th is Rolla, and 6th is Trangarade.
Now we're taking a look at that battle for the lead. Once again, Phil Lake has just been sitting there in behind Dennis Neidhart, possibly saving fuel, possibly just trying to figure out what his strategy is going to be. They're getting lapped right by Martin Krejcik, who just sneaks by, but Dennis Neidhart, he's got to be thinking to himself, both of these guys are thinking to themselves, I have to get the best exit of the race out of the bus stop chicane in order for me to win this thing.
Right on board with Phil. Just an update, let's stay here because there's really no battle we're about to talk about. But Fabian Gerber leads, and it's 18 seconds over Michael Houghton and the prototypes. Krejcik's now in 3rd there, now the pit stop's done. Engstrom is in 4th. Laust Olsen rounds out the top 5. I talked about Pawlowski. He actually settled into 6th place. Finally getting something of a break here in our GTOs. Not seeing too many of our prototypes coming through. They are going to be met, these two leaders, by Kitty Engstrom here briefly, and then they got a break before Mukanos and Morelli.
Yeah, that battle for P3 hasn't gone anywhere, though, Joe, with Juco Leskala leading Rob Olenek and Billy Rolla. Ove Trangarade actually dropped about a second back of Rolla. I think Rolla might, I mean, if they were teammates, I'd assume that Rolla was going back to get him. But Robbo is not interested in making the pass. It looks like everyone's just being patient now and waiting until we get further in. There's 11 minutes to go here in this 60-minute race, and that's going to make things very interesting as far as strategy is concerned. This is much like a Daytona
Rolla with a slowdown. Billy Rolla cut the course and has had to give it back, it looks like. That or he had a missed shift. Let's watch and listen. Oh, it was a missed shift.
So some of these drivers decide that they want to downshift into 3rd through the horseshoe, through the bus stop rather. There, I'll get to the word eventually, and that's what I do when I drive. But I know that some of the drivers up at the front of the field tend to stay in 4th there, and that is exactly why when you go over those bumps, it's very easy to upset the gearbox. And the gearbox in this Audi is so finicky that if you miss that shift, you lose all of your speed, and now he is 2 seconds behind Ove Trangrade. That is how much time you lose if you get the bus stop wrong.
He might be joined by someone depending on what his pace is like, because Jamie Hall has been hovering back there. I'm trying to figure out actually how he wound up this far back, because I thought he was battling for that third place for a brief while, even after his incident.
It was the stall in the pit stop where
that's
he
right.
stalled the engine and he lost a ton of time. And so he unfortunately is relegated back to 7th right now.
Forgot that he had that happen. A lot of drivers got to be kicking themselves today for little mistakes like that have cost them better opportunities. Watching Leskala from just behind his shoulder, and boy, this gives you an idea not only of the bumps, but of the closing speed, as he's just going to whip around the outside of Robbo.
Yeah, he actually got a little bit too high and ended up taking the corner a little bit straight on the exit of 4, but Robbo's going to drop right in behind him. Juco's going to need to work on trying to angle that corner, the exit of 4, off a little bit more so he gets an ideal line. But now Juco into the lead. Robbo with a decent exit off of 1 is going to be able to pull back towards him.
Watching from Trangrade. This is the lead of this group, though. We should clarify Leskala moves into 3rd with that overtake. Trangrade is looking for a good result. He's been quick, but a little bit accident-prone this season.
He's going to have to try and claw his way by these guys, but whenever they get back onto the oval, he seems to have a bad exit out of this corner. That's really easy to do. You see how he takes a shallow line through there and gets the car sliding. That loses him a lot of time, and it makes his exit have to fight the normal tightness of the Audi GTO. If he took a little bit of a later braking but a wider line into the corner, he might be able to get a better exit there and close in on these guys.
Phil Lake still holding on to the back of
spun car ahead of them. That was Nicholas Morelli. Yeah, they managed to dodge it with no problem, but Phil Lake is the closest he's been to the back of Neidhart. Neidhart actually backs off a little bit going through the corner. So this is interesting. Everyone trying out different strategies here. Phil Lake loses some speed there as well, so there's a little bit of a note to go into Neidhart's bag as far as what might win him the race here. Phil Lake, though, seems content to stay right behind Neidhart right now.
Definitely some mind games going on here. I think the drivers are experimenting and figuring out what works and what doesn't.
I'm sorry, but could we possibly get a replay of the move Ove Trangrade just tried to pull on Rob Olenek as they went across the start-finish line? Ove thought he might try to go underneath the yellow line through the tri-oval, and that is a sketchy proposition in any car, but especially an Audi GTO.
And Leskala pitted. Leskala is in. Does he have a penalty?
Possibly, but here's the move. Ove just, it looks like that possibly was a block there for Rob as well, so everyone's getting a little frisky right now as we're under 7 minutes to go.
Wow. This was a 4-car battle. We lost Rolla. We've lost Leskala.
Penalty.
Now it's down to 2.
It was a penalty, Joe. Leskala got a penalty for incidents, it appears.
Well, there you go. I said drivers might not have to worry about racking up quite that many in the bus stop, but I think Yuko pushed it too hard. Back up the lead in the GTOs. Let's hope we don't fall victim to that between these two, because it's been such a good fight here.
There it was. That's the move, Joe. That's the move Dennis is going to need to do to win this race. He backed up Phil on the exit of the bus stop, and that is what allowed Dennis to get a decent run. Now Dennis just needs to find a way to block off Phil as they get onto the front stretch. So he moves up to the middle of the track, and that forces Phil to stay behind. But if Phil had a run, where would he go there? Would he try and go around the outside, try and go around the inside? It's a risky proposition either way, but that's exactly the move Dennis is practicing to try and get ready for the finish of this race.
Can't imagine the pressure these two are feeling, especially Lake, knowing that he has to make inroads on the championship points. It isn't over if he loses, but it makes his work all the harder in the final 2 rounds. They've got 5 minutes left to decide who is going to take the trophy today.
Right, so that's the move that Neidhart's working on. Phil Lake has got to be working on trying to make it through the bus stop cleaner. he has been tight on the exit of the bus stop, and what that does is it slows you down on your exit and makes it so that he's not equal speed with Dennis Neidhart when they exit the bus stop. If Phil can get the bus stop right on the last lap, and he's not too close behind Dennis, he wants to be about half a second behind entering the bus stop so that Dennis can't hold him up. And if Dennis tries to hold him up, he can get a really good exit and slingshot right by. But you want to wait to slingshot until the exit of 4. There's so much to think about, Joe.
As all this is happening, I think the same sort of battle is going between Trangarade and Olenek. Those two are still close together. And it's, with it being only the two of them, they can also now play those little games. So I'm looking behind, because Hall, I think, is closing a little bit on Verola for 5th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but with
Look at the
3
lap
seconds
times.
behind and 4 minutes to go, it's going to be really hard pressed to try and gain those 3 seconds back. He's going to have to pull in a second a lap on Rolla if he wants to gain that spot.
He was significantly faster this last lap, but he might have had a little bit of slipstream help on that one. So we watch our top 2 come into the first quarter once again. No change. So let's hop over to Fabian Gerber. What was a bit of a battle at the start, him trying to chase down Enrique? Well, it wound up being Fabian gifted the lead from Van Bella's mistake, and he hasn't really had any sort of hassle since then. It's 20 seconds back to Houghton in that number 3. The gap for the championship lead between himself and Mukanos is going to be more than a win's worth after this round.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Makanos was about a second behind, but he tried to get in there. But here we take a look at 6th position. They're actually trapped behind our leaders in the GTO class, and this is going to make things interesting between Pawlowski and Jungbluth as Jungbluth gets held up off the corner. Let's see, both of them should be able to pass these guys before they reach the bus stop.
Might be a little tight on how much time we have left, how many laps we have left here. Jungbluth goes around the outside. And he's going to be followed by Pawlowski. Roman going to just stay put in line. Let's keep an eye on the 2 leading the GTOs. Let's see what Neidhart does this time. Once again, very slow into there.
Yeah, that move's going to work, especially if Phil is that close coming into the bus stop. Phil has really got to pace himself. Now you see him gain. This is exactly what he wants to do. That's the perfect exit speed for Phil. He wants to get the speed on the exit of 4 that gives him the best opportunity to slingshot, because he's going to have to make that pass around the outside. You know Dennis is going to defend at the bottom.
Might seem like a game of rock, paper, scissors, but it is not completely random. Got to know the psychology of your opponent. Try to anticipate what they're going to do and go based on that. We have 2 laps to go as Fabian Gerber just crosses the line now.
Gerber with a very solid performance today. He had some, like you said, he had some fights early, both with Van Bella and with Makanos, but ever since Makanos had his incident in turn 1, he has been free and clear, and he's given up some time to Michael Houghton, but that's fine. He's just racing his pace right now and making sure he gets through all the traffic cleanly.
We haven't looked at these 2 since early on, but Franco Scurry and Daniel Sadro looking to sort out 7th. Sadro, one of the last drivers to make his pit stop here in the GTO field. A little bit wide there for Franco.
Yeah, he was trying to carry a lot of speed into the corner, but the Audi right front tire just does not hold up against that much pressure trying to go through that corner. You really do have to rotate the entire car. You can't really carry that much speed through a sharp corner like that in the Audi GTO.
Lake had a much better run this time. I think he's getting a little bit wise to what Dennis is doing. Maybe he's showing his cards too early. Is this going to be enough? Well, that was a lift, so we won't know this time by. Again, still 2 to go for these 2 drivers. Gerber's actually just coming to take the white flag now.
So it'll be 1 to go for them because they might get passed on this lap.
He'd have to gain quite a bit on them. Not sure if he can get that much.
I
Also
hope Phil's paying attention to that, because it's this might be the race for the win in this lap. We'll find out.
Well, the other thing too, if Fabian sees that it's a battle for the lead, does he feel like ending it here, or does he feel like giving them? Because he has the space to slow up. Where are they right now? And yeah, I just don't think that he can catch them, because it's almost the whole infield between them right now.
Well, it gives us a whole lap to pay attention to that GTO win, the GTO battle for the win, if that's the case, because Fabian will finish quite close behind him.
Lake was really slow off at turn 6. Look at the gap. It's huge. I don't know if this was intentional.
Yes, but fortunately, he's still well within the draft, so this is going to give him about 0.4 of a second going into the bus stop. Dennis very slow into the bus stop. He brakes at the center of the bus stop as well. Yeah, Phil's working on that exit. This wasn't a particularly great one, but let's jump back to Fabian, because he's definitely about to...
Yeah, he's coming up to the bus stop now. And he's just got Vili Rolla in front of him, the 5th place driver in the GTOs. He's going to end the day for Vili, unfortunately for him, so he can't gain any more positions after this, because Fabian Gerber taking win number 3 here today at Daytona and solidifying his championship lead.
And unfortunately, Phil Lake did not do the fuel calculations correctly. He is in the pits. That unfortunately takes away his opportunity to take the win today.
That's why he was hanging back so much. It wasn't to just try and wait for the snipe at the end. He was actually trying to get to the finish of this race. Heartbreak for Phil Lake. Going to make life extremely difficult into the final round.
His teammate also had the same issue. Jamie Hall also had the same issue, Joe, so he had to come into the pits as well. He's now 3 laps down.
Time to replace the calculators down at Dirty Torque. Texas Instruments apparently not working anymore.
And Glacier Racing also having the same problem. Vili Rolla is out of the race as well.
I wonder if Rollas is because of the damage. Because I feel like he maybe was sucking up a bit more fuel than he expected, especially if he cut it tight. Meanwhile, Dennis Neidhart about to put a lap on Leskala.
And Obe Trangrade's out of fuel as well in 3rd position. So Neidhart, he gets coast back now.
In the end, here we thought it was going to be a tight fight for the victory, and Dennis just cruises his way to the checkered flag. He is going to go around the outside of Leskala. Win number 8 for Dennis Neidhart. What a season.
And he even took that extra 3 seconds of fuel. I can't believe it, Joe. This is insane.
Those 3 seconds, that was the deciding factor, I think. He was the only one smart enough to do it. All right, let's take a break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. A lot to go over on this race. Hopefully we'll get to talk to some people. Stick around for the driver interviews as well as the official results. And then on screen, we'll see all the upcoming races here on GSRC. Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway. Round 10 here in the Kamel GT Series was a fascinating one, unlike anything we've seen all season. But up at the front of it, Fabian Gerber extends his lead by taking another victory here. Michael Houghton was a very distant second, 22 seconds behind, but he honestly capitalized on everybody else's problems, picking up as others wrecked in front of him. Martin Krejcik finished third with a great run for him. And then Kitty Engstrom with a fourth place was followed by Laust Olsen getting another top 5 for his belt. Fabian Jungbluth going from 10th to 6th, gained a few spots along the way. Yuri Geisen, this is actually a good race for Yuri, I'd say. We usually see him farther back in the pack, but he finished 7th. And then Pablo Suarez was 8th. Guillermo Kramer, unfortunately, the first car a lap down in 9th, with Roman Pavlowski finishing in 10th. Then it's Ryan Lang in P11, with Nick Mukanos having to settle for 12th after starting in 3rd. Johnny Bell was 13th. Carlos Fonseca 14th. Nick Morelli 15th. And Bert Olsen in P16. Last of the finishers in the prototypes was Mike Ruder in P17.
Dennis Neidhart took a couple extra gallons, and that ended up being the couple of extra feet he needed to make it to the line in the lead. Dennis Neidhart takes the win today, with Rob Olenek inheriting second place after Phil Lake had those fuel issues. Ove Trangrade comes home in third. Villy Rolla runs out of fuel, coming home ahead of Phil Lake in fourth, with Phil Lake coming home in fifth position, and that was just due to where their boxes were in pit lane. Daniel Sadro comes home in sixth spot, with Hideki Koivisto in seventh. Christopher Chitterling will come home in 8th position. Ernesto Romero coming home in 9th, with Franco Scurry coming home in 10th position. Jamie Hall also ran out of fuel the penultimate lap rather, so he comes home in 11th spot, with Dominic Bureau in 12th. Then you get into our drivers who had a little bit more trouble. John Hodgson in the GTP comes home in 18th spot, with Zuko Leskola coming home in the 13th spot for the GTOs, with Donald Peak 14th, Simaraba 15th, and Michael Haynes 16th, the last of our finishers today.
Look, we've got second place in the prototypes ready to talk to us. Michael Houghton joining us here. And as the P2 finisher gets ready, Michael, it looked like you had some fun early on in the race with some nice battles, but then everybody else just kind of left you alone in the end. So
I know. I don't know what happened, man. People just started falling off and getting into accidents. But, I kept thinking, oh, my God, I'm going to be next. But it didn't happen. So I'm glad that managed to finish up on the podium.
big issues, more prominently in the GTOs than here in the prototypes, seem to be fuel calculations. How were you on fuel at the end? Was it tight for you, or did you give it a nice, comfy margin?
I had about a lap extra at the end, so I planned it with crew chief and got a lap extra. But if Fabian was maybe 30-40 seconds further ahead, I would have run out of fuel.
Well, thankfully, you did manage to come home with another podium. Unfortunately, I believe still looking for that elusive first win this season. You got 2 more chances to try and get that one in. Do you think it's possible?
Anything's possible, man. As you can see from today, just people falling off, and I'm not saying that I want to win that way, but hey, that's racing, right?
A win is a win, absolutely. Well, I'll let you give your traditional thanks and your traditional exit. Why don't you give it to us?
Well, thank you, boys, and I hope everybody and your families are okay. And yeah!
Michael Houghton with the podium here today. And Adam has caught up with the man that finished ahead of him, Fabian Gerber, our winner today.
Yeah, Fabian, fantastic race today, very consistent. But talk to me about those first couple laps where you were fighting with Ben Bella. Were you trying to get up to the back of him, or were you just working on your pit strategy at that point?
Both a bit. I mean, he was so fast. I just could keep up. It started maybe shortly before he lost it that I might be able to attack because my tires were a bit better then. So I wonder what would have happened. Would have been interesting. It's a shame he lost it.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. But Fabian, we've noticed that quite a few drivers had struggles with fuel towards the end of that race. How are you doing by the time we got to the line?
I'm glad I drove the race yesterday. So in yesterday's didn't have enough, so I had to go for a splash and dash in the final laps. And I swore to myself it wouldn't be happening to again today. So I just took in enough. It was a bit too much, but not much. So it was okay for me.
Yeah, next week, Fabian, we head to the challenging Road Atlanta. That seems to be a track where multi-class is very difficult, and with the big fields we've been seeing, what are your expectations heading into next week?
Yeah, it's always been a very difficult race, but fun too. It's a great track to drive for us, and if people behave, then it's okay, like usually. It's just Nissan has to wait for in the SS behind an Audi. There's no way around. So if that's clear, then it's actually gonna be okay, I think.
Well, Fabian, fantastic win today. Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
You guys, thank you very much for complimenting me and for doing the broadcast. It's fun to watch, and yes, see you next week.
Awesome. See you later, Fabian, and thanks for talking to us. It looks like Joe Peak has caught up with Phil Lake, who unfortunately finishes in 5th today.
Yeah, Phil, we were hyping ourselves up, thinking that we had this fascinating battle coming down to a last lap, and then, well, it was kind of anticlimactic in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I missed it by a click. I haven't done a lot of practice for this race, to be honest, because I'm not a big fan of these draft for an hour and wait for the last lap type races. But Rob was taking 16 gallons of fuel, and so I initially set that on the grid, and I was saving massively on the first stint, and I'd used quite a lot less. So I went for 11 gallons, which it got me a nice jump. I think I gained 6 seconds or so. But then I immediately realized I needed to be in the draft for the rest of the race to get to the end. So I had to slow down, let Dennis catch me. Unfortunately, he played ball and just sat in front of me for the rest of the race. But then I missed it. I had 0.7 of a lap left, so I was thinking about trying to get round, but I don't think I would have. So I pitted.
And then unfortunately, it looks like the GTP leader came by and you didn't even really get to exit the pits. So that must have been a bit of a sad end. Next week, though, we're going to Road Atlanta, which isn't as much of a draft track, though it is still possible. We heard Fabian talk about the dynamic between the two cars. You've had a lot of experience in these series. So how confident are you feeling going in there that they'll behave through some of the twistier bits?
Yeah, pretty confident. Yeah, Road Atlanta is one of my favorite tracks. It is definitely difficult with the multi-class traffic. It really is just that 2, 3, 4, 5 section that the Nissans have to be patient, and if they aren't, the Audi has to be aware. You can make a move around the outside of 3, but you have to set it up through 2, which is something I've noticed with a lot of the newcomers in the Nissans, is they tend to kind of close up too much to the Audi in the corner, and then when they get to the exit of the corner, they've had to slow down to the Audi's speed, whereas they should kind of, you can't if there's someone behind, but ideally you should time it so that you're still going full speed through the corner, and then you carry all of your exit speed and you can pass easily. But that is it's a tough track for traffic, for sure.
Certainly seems like it. Also, unfortunately, with Dennis taking the win, from what I'm reading, some of it will depend on how many GTO drivers actually show next week for you to have a shot at the championship. So I guess my question is to you: how are you going to convince enough drivers to show up at Road Atlanta?
I was pretty resigned to Dennis has driven fantastically this season. I think is this now 8 of 9 or
Yeah.
9 of 10? Yeah, he's just been dominant. So it almost wouldn't be right to win the championship with him winning so many races. So I'm more focused on next season now.
Already got those eyes forward. Well, it's understandable, Phil. Commiserations on the finish today, and hopefully we'll get to see you with a good result in a week's time.
Yeah, thanks, guys. See you there.
incredible stats that Adam's showing me here for Neidhart. 8 wins out of 10, 1 no-show, and 1 second place. That is just incredible. We're going to wrap things up, though. It looks like we need to give some thanks to the Kamel GT community as well for bringing us back for another season of coverage. Hopefully we'll be back for another round because, man, it's been a couple years now, and we really enjoy these guys. But also a thank you goes to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. And thanks to the team today, Adam, Sean, and Doug. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Make sure and check out our merchandise store. It's at gsrc.storeenvy.com. We've got a link in the description below where, while you're there, make sure and subscribe to the channel. Very easy to do so. All you got to do is click on the big red button that says subscribe. Next race is going to be at Road Atlanta. As we mentioned, that'll be Saturday, May 3rd at 1 p.m. Eastern. But we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar, including coming up tonight, we've got the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series coming up. So check out some short track oval racing. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.